All right, this is going to be amazing. We are talking about teen anxiety, what we can do, what are the root causes of it, and what we can do, most importantly, to help them. I just see it so much these days. So I have Dr. Shawn Talbott with me here today. He is a PhD in nutritional biochemistry. He is the chief science officer of the mental wellness company, and he is just a wealth of knowledge on this topic. He studied psychonutrition, and this is, his thing. He's an author, incredible athlete. I could go on and on, but I won't. We'll go right into it because I know you get crazy about that. So thank you so much again for being with me here today. And I'm like I said, I'm in so many parenting groups, and I see these parents just struggling with their kids that just have all this anxiety. So Can you give us like an idea of some of the physiological reasons for such high anxiety levels? I know obviously there's cultural things going on right now, but what we can do to help them, on a physiological level, because I don't think
that's the perspective that I try to come at it from the perspective of biochemistry driving psychology. This idea that these things that are happening in our bodies are stress hormones like cortisol, our neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and GABA. All those biochemicals will drive a behavior. They'll drive us to feel stressed, or they'll drive us to feel happy, or they'll drive us to feel motivated, or drive us to feel calm. And so if we can modulate those biochemicals directly, we can help ourselves feel better. We can actually help ourselves have better stress resilience, so that in the face of these cultural things that are going on, right? Pandemics and school shutdowns and, all that kind of stuff, social distancing, which thankfully is starting to sort of calm down around the country. In the face of all that kind of stuff, we can still do a lot better because we're able to naturally modulate the levels of those stress hormones and neurochemicals and things called cytokines, which are involved in inflammation and things like that. So, we can sort of unpack how we do all of that naturally. But one of the things I would just want to say before we go on to the next question you might have for me, Dale, is that I'm shocked that it isn't 100% of kids and teenagers that are having problems with their mood, or problems with their stress levels, or problems with their tension or their anxiety because of everything that's going on. I mean, I know my own kids. My kids are college age, right? But they're on their devices all the time. They're, a lot of times they've got 2 or 3 or 4 devices going at once. The TV's on, they have something on their phone, they're checking their computer, they're checking their, whatever else is beeping at them. And all that input that kids get, that is like, humans are not wired for that. And so all that multitasking and all of that sort of a million things coming at you at once, especially in the face of the uncertainty around what we've all just gone through in 2020, and now halfway through 2021, it's a wonder that it isn't 100% anxiety levels out there.
Well, I think it is, actually. I think it is 100%. It's different degrees of it, but I think it is 100%. So how do we help our kids? How do we, how can we modulate? What can we do? And I know that a lot of all the technology and all that is absolutely interfering with our sleep, which is another component.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not the kind of person who's going to say to people, what you need to do is put down the device. What you need to do is get 8 hours of sleep. What you need to do is, because people have heard that kind of stuff before, and it's not. I don't want people to think that those kinds of things aren't effective at a certain level, but they're unrealistic for a lot of people. So instead, that's why I mentioned just a few minutes ago about this idea of improving your resilience so that you can handle more, so that we can actually thrive in the face of all of those things that are these sources of stress. So from a natural perspective, we know that the t-shirt that I have on right now, healthy gut, healthy mind. We know that a lot of what is happening up here in the mind, in the head, are actually signals that can be modulated down here at the level of the gut. And so that's why a lot of the interventions that I talk about will really focus on a healthy gut, a healthy balanced microbiome, which are the bacteria in the gut. And the reason for that, and the reason that we call this reason that we call the gut a second brain is that that second brain is sending signals to the first brain. So the majority of our serotonin is made in the gut, and that can help us, if we have enough of it, to be happier in the face of all this stress. Most of our dopamine that helps us with motivation, most of our GABA that helps us relax. So if we're tense and anxious, it might be that our microbiome isn't producing enough GABA, and so we can give it the right nutrients so it makes more GABA, and that will calm us down. But the thing that's interesting about it is that it only calms us down in the face of that stress. So it's not like it calms us and we're just sort of lying around, kind of zoned out all day. Our body only activates that response when we need it, when we need to relax and fall asleep, or when we're stressed out and we need to calm ourselves down. So focusing on the gut first is a very dynamic, sort of interactive way to deal with whatever stress we encounter in a given day. So it's a really, really, really different way of thinking about it that I think sometimes people don't fully appreciate.
Yeah, it's more like a reserve, like keeping the gut in balance is kind of like, okay, then your body has that stored in there to when those things arise.
Right.
So I love
exactly.
Stress resilience. Like, I love that. I think that word is, and I can relate to that stress resilience is kind of like when things come before us, we're able to handle it. So also that has to do with the gut. Can you explain a little bit? I know it has something to do with cortisol levels, and explain that, how stress resilience also goes back to the gut.
Yeah, so stress resilience really comes back to the gut. So people have heard, and probably used these terms before, trust your gut, or you had a gut feeling about something. Those are aspects of our gut determining how we feel in a given situation. And so, whether it's a reserve or it's a reservoir or it's this dynamic activity of your gut being able to adapt to whatever situation that you're in. So if you have a lot of stress going on, your response should be to make more of this neurotransmitter called GABA to calm you down. And so if your gut is not in the right balance and you're stressed out, that you're not going to be able to make that GABA. And so you're going to stay stressed out. And staying stressed out, being chronically stressed, can actually be bad for every system in your body. That exposure to stress hormones like cortisol will break down your brain, neurons, will break down your immune system, will lead to more inflammation, and all of those things can lead to more and more stress. So if our body, if our gut isn't able to respond and help us to de-stress, that actually compounds on itself, and we get more stress and more stress and more stress. And that's one of the big reasons why so many people are in such a bad place right now, because our gut has been in a bad place. Our microbiome has been out of balance, and that has enabled these stress responses to sort of compound and compound and compound. And now we're in this sort of frazzled state. And I say to people, so many people are tired, stressed, and depressed because of what we've all gone through. So we go back to the gut. How can we get people out of that situation? We can help them rebuild their gut microbiome by giving them the right probiotic strains and the right prebiotic fibers, which are going to nourish those bacteria so they grow and they have good metabolism and they produce the good neurotransmitters. And once we do that, then people have better resilience. Then when they're in a stressful situation, they're able to handle that better. They're able to calm themselves, and then they don't get that exacerbation of those cortisol stress signals. So so many people are in this like vicious cycle of stress leading to more stress. And we want to get them into a reverse cycle, what I call a virtuous cycle, of that stress being taken care of in a dynamic fashion. And then they're more calm and they're more resilient and they can handle more. And, you start getting better and better and better instead of worse and worse and worse. It's
amazing. It's kind of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it like the stress that came first, or was it the gut being out of balance that came first?
Right. And that's the thing that makes it really interesting to study as a scientist, that, trying to tease out the mechanisms and, what's feeding back on what and things like that. But that can also make it really frustrating when you're living the situation, because chicken and egg scenario, you don't know if your stress caused these gut problems and then these gut problems led to more stress, or did you get some gut problems and that led to a stress response? And so I just say, let's short circuit the whole thing. Let's go right to the source of the problem, which is that disrupted gut, versus saying, let's go to the source of the problem, which is your stress, and get all the stress out of your life again, unrealistic. We can't do that. So let's improve resilience at the level of the microbiome, at the level of that gut health. And then you're able to be better over that entire gut-brain axis. And people will come back after we do one of these therapies. And it's, you know, it's not like it's a hard therapy. We can talk about the nutrients that we use. We do that, they come back and they go, yeah, that was it. I feel a lot better. I'm able to, you know, do X, and then they fill in the blank. You know, they have more energy, so they exercise. They have less stress eating, so they're losing weight. They have less brain fog, so they're focused again. You know, it really sort of ripples out from there.
Yeah, and they are making better choices, like you said. Like now, once we repopulate the gut, get them feeling better, then they're like, I don't really feel like eating that. I feel like I want to go exercise. Like it's just like the
right, exactly. And with resilience, one of the really cool things that we see when we measure it is that something that used to really stress somebody out before one of these interventions, now that same thing, they might encounter it again and go, no, that's no big deal. I'm just going to handle this. And that's something that we call cognitive flexibility. And that really goes up when you rebuild the gut this way. So it can be helpful for overall mood. It can be helpful for people who are, you know, sort of fatigued all the time. It can be helpful for people who are having sort of, you know, stress and irritability and anxiety and things like that. And people will say like, well, how can one thing help with all of that? Because it's all different sort of flavors or all different sort of slices of that gut being out of balance. So we get the whole gut-brain axis in balance, and they all sort of resolve in a sense.
I love it, because I love going to the root cause, which is what I feel like our bodies are really miraculous. And if you give it the right nutrients, then it will start to fire and like start to heal and start to balance out. So can you talk about some of the nutrients that are in this protocol?
Yeah. So when I talk about probiotics, this is probably one of the places it's important to unpack for people a little bit. Is that, you know, not all probiotics are the same, right? I think the general public has this idea that probiotics are good for me, and if I'm eating yogurt or drinking kombucha or something like that, I'm getting my probiotics. Probiotics meaning the healthy bacteria. They're going to help with your microbiome balance. But that's not really the case. I mean, I'm an advocate of drinking kombucha and eating yogurt and fermented foods and all that kind of stuff, because you do get a certain level of probiotics. But the kind that I'm talking about are very specific strains where we can say, if we supplement somebody with this strain, it helps with mood. If we supplement with this other strain, it helps with stress. And this other strain helps with anxiety. And this other strain helps with diarrhea. And this other strain helps with constipation, and et cetera, right? But think about this. What if you just took any old probiotic and you didn't have an appreciation for this one does constipation and this one does diarrhea, right? Those are opposite effects. And so you really want to make sure you choose the right one. So we know that level. We can say to someone, we want you to supplement with Lactobacillus rhamnosus R0011. That's the specific strain designation that's going to lower your stress. And what we know about that one, it lowers cortisol, that's the body's primary stress hormone, and it raises GABA production, the body's primary relaxing neurotransmitter. So you feel less stressed out on the one hand and calmer on the other hand. And that's a wonderful effect for a lot of people. But people might look at that and go, well, those are very lovely effects, but I also want the good mood one, and I also want the anti-anxiety one, you know? So that's where the decision point comes in, you know, which one you're going to want. And then we can even go to another level and we can say, let's not even give you these bacteria. Let's give you a fiber, a specific fiber that's going to nourish the kind of bacteria in your gut that are already living there, that are producing some of these resilience neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin and things like that. So we could give you one called a GOS, G-O-S, which stands for galacto-oligosaccharide. And we know that one can help improve overall resilience. There's another one called galactomannan that has a similar sort of an effect on overall resilience. So we can do it from the level of give you the bacteria. We can do it from the level of feed the bacteria by giving specific fibers that we call prebiotics. We can do it from the perspective of giving specific phytonutrients. We did a study a couple of years ago that showed that if we gave kids a very specific saffron extract, we were able to calm them, but also improve their focus at the same time. So we can do that with pine bark. We can do it with saffron. We can do it with theanine, which is an amino acid from green tea. There are so many options that people have these days for their kids, for their teenagers, for themselves. If we're talking to adults, it's a really, really exciting time because the science is telling us what really works and what we should really focus on.
So the fundamentals, which is our flagship product that you formulated, you have it all in there, correct?
We have most of it, actually.
We have it all. All the benefits.
Yeah, the idea with fundamentals was to really look at the science and say, all right, you used the word just a few minutes ago, Dale, what is the root cause, right? We used to think it was stress hormones, and then we realized it was inflammation. Then we realized it was blood sugar. Then we realized so over the years of scientific study, we've been able to go, what root cause, more root cause, more root cause, more root cause. And right now, as far as the science tells us, is this level of the microbiome that we're talking about. So with fundamentals, what we decided we would do is look to the science and say, all right, what does the science tells us about what are the biochemicals that are causing these psychological issues, these mental wellness challenges? And if we could build all of them into one coordinated system, that has never existed before. So let's try that. So we put things in it that help with brain neurotransmitters and blood flow and activation of neuron patterns so that people are focused. We looked at what's happening at the level of the gut and maintain good gut integrity and give these strains that I just mentioned of bacteria and feed them with the right fibers. And then in the axis, so when we talk about gut-brain axis, the axis in between is how those two brains talk to each other. So they speak to each other. They send signals back and forth through your nervous system and through your inflammatory cascade and through your immune system. So we have phytonutrients that work on making those signals more efficient through the axis. And so when you put that all together, it's one thing to say to somebody, all right, here's a menu of things. You could choose these, any of these bacteria, any of these fibers, any of these phytonutrients. Good luck. Choose whatever you think is going to help you. And I mean, you could do that, but you could also choose fundamentals that is this beautiful recipe that has put all of those together in the right balance. So people can just say, you know what? I actually want to feel better across my whole gut-brain axis. I'm just going to try that. And when people try fundamentals, they come back and they'll say, yeah, my brain fog is gone and my gut feels better and my mood and my resilience and you get the idea. They're getting better and better and better.
Yeah, it's amazing because we have a group where we have thousands of stories, but they're all different. And it's not one thing. It's not like, I have anxiety. It's typically like anxiety, stomach issues, sleep issues, whatever, depression. There's kind of like a whole array of things that the benefits, like you said, are across the board. They're all over the place.
Right. And it's very often different for different people. And so that's one of the things that's really interesting about this, that if your signaling across your gut-brain axis is off in one way or another, one person might be off and experience fatigue, and somebody else might be off and experience depression. And those can be related, but they're distinctly different. And the question is, why does person A have this and why does person B have that? And yet, if we solve the problem at the level of the gut, they both feel better, right? That's what's really exciting about it, is that if you get as root cause as possible, right at the level of the microbiome, you help as many people as possible. You help people in all these different ways that seem to be different problems or different issues. And yet when you trace them all back biochemically, they're all microbiome problems.
Right. All right. One more question before we leave. As far as teens go, because we know that teens are like notorious for eating tons of sugar, typically.
That's right.
Eating junk. So what can we do about that? Like, can you talk about, I mean, I know how bad it is to have all that sugar, but can you talk about that a little bit? And then, how introducing this protocol will definitely lessen their cravings. I know we touched on it.
So kids, teens, even adults, if you're eating a junky diet, you're eating lots of cookies and chips and fast foods and sodas and things like that, that's not going to be very good for your microbiome, right? That's going to be a diet that's high in sugar, but also low in fiber. And it's that fiber deficiency that's really going to damage your microbiome. So the first thing we would say to them is try to get more fiber in your diet. So with my own kids, even if they're eating a junky diet, I want them to eat some fruits and vegetables, so it doesn't replace the junky stuff that they might be eating, but at least it makes up for it in a little bit. So add more of the good stuff, the high fiber fruits and vegetables. Then you can slowly start to take away some of the junky stuff. And the thing that's really, really cool about that is that adding in the high fiber fruits and vegetables, or some of these supplements that we just talked about, that will actually, because it's nourishing a different population of gut bacteria, they'll send signals to the brain when those bacteria get hungry, they're going to want more of the fruits and vegetables, and they're going to want less of the junky food. And so we see appetite levels changing over time, where people crave the junk less and crave the good stuff more. And so that just, again, virtuous cycle that builds on itself. You keep eating more and more of those foods, you grow more and more of the good bacteria, you get more and more of the good signals, you feel good, your appetite is better, your cravings are down. And so we see that in kids and teenagers and adults across the board.
I love it. So good. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. I know our kids and parents are really looking for some solutions. Maybe this is kind of outside the box, but I'll tell you what, we have amazing testimonials like in our group. So again, do go back to the person that invited you. They can teach you more about the protocol. We have a really nice science video that you've done, Dr. Shawn, that really gives a really great overview of the mechanism and how it really works. So again, I appreciate you for being with us here today, and we will see you again. All right.
My pleasure. Always good talking to you, Dale.